Nazis weren't treating others well, regardless of your standard. So, that would be my response.
I just think that they probably thought that they were doing this world a great service.
But they weren't treating individuals well.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and defend Nazis. That's just my point. I mean, I would agree with you that it's very legitimate to use my religious text as the basis for evaluating the truth claims of others. Isn't that what you said? I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I completely agree with that.
Yeah, I could say things, but I would offend people, so I won't say that.
Perhaps we have time for one more question each, and then we'll move on to audience questions first.
Okay. Here, let me ask you a question. So, within Christianity, are there multiple religions?
Multiple religions.
Or-
Wow.
Not religion. What's the word?
They're denominations?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
the word. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so why are there multiple denominations?
I think that their denominations spring up over doctrinal differences, that we are interpreting texts differently, and that there are sometimes different worship styles that we enjoy. Yeah.
So even within Christianity, there are different paths because you interpret that text differently.
I would say there are different denominations because we interpret the text differently.
Right. So within any one of those denominations, I apologize if I keep
Sure, that's fine.
Within those denominations, are there different viewpoints? So are there liberal Baptists and conservative Baptists?
Yes.
So even within one denomination, there are multiple interpretations.
There are.
So is there one that's right and one that's wrong?
Yes.
Wow. How do you know if you're on the right side or the wrong side? I'm a little scared now.
You study and you work hard, but frankly, just seems like a strange world to live in, where 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4. I go back to the same question I asked before. When you say something, you want to be understood for what you said, that you had a meaning behind the text, or behind your statement.
Right, and that's a whole question of intentionality, where what I intended to say maybe was interpreted differently, and then maybe 10 minutes later, my intentions on that same statement are different.
Yeah, but
Maybe in different contexts, my intentions are different.
consciously?
Sure.
So you make a statement, and then you walk away, and you think, no, I actually meant something else by what I said?
Heck yeah.
Okay.
Have y'all ever done that?
I think, I know.
Really? Wow.
I regret the things that I say sometimes because I know what I meant when I said them. It's strange to me to live in a world where we can't be taken seriously, but that I mean something by what I say, and it's driven by context. And I might be wrong in what I say, but my intention, if understood correctly, I have an intention in what I say, and I want to be understood correctly. I don't want to be misunderstood unless later I think back and go, "Well, I shouldn't have said that because I meant something wrong. I shouldn't have said what I said. I hope they misunderstood me." But at the time, I have a meaning by what I say. Why would we not afford the biblical writers? Why wouldn't we not afford God the very same charity that God means something by what He says? And there might be multiple interpretations, but that doesn't mean that they're right.
Yeah, but
It means that at least one of them is wrong if we have completely incompatible conclusions.
But here's the thing. I can say, hey, Todd, when you made that crazy statement last week, what did you really mean?
Yes.
If I ask God what He really means, is He going to say, Tricia, this is what I really meant. No, what do I have to do? I have to rely on people more learned, such as yourself, in biblical interpretation than I. But aren't you just interpreting it from your perspective?
I think that words mean things in context, and that God hasn't left us words that mean absolutely anything that we want them to mean. We can interpret them, and we can interpret them correctly. I mean, even what you said about John chapter 1, verse 1, about that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, that means something. And there are other things that it doesn't mean. And I mean, what kind of world would we live in if words are just thrown out there and it's just a hermeneutical free-for-all that we can assign whatever meaning we want to them?
I'm not suggesting that you can assign any meaning.
Why? Why not?
Well, because words are finite, as St. Augustine reminds us, but they're finite in terms of red doesn't mean blue.
Okay.
Okay? But when I say red, we're all going to have a different conception of what red is, right? Some people might picture this color, some people might picture that. There's a whole myriad of reds in this room. So we are capable of interpreting words within boundaries. And so I'm just not sure why you are so positive that there is one correct interpretation of these words. And how are we, as mere mortals, supposed to know what that correct interpretation is? You suggest that by studying, you know. Well, I can study, but maybe the results or the interpretation that I come up with is different than yours. To kind of steal from your colloquialism, who made you God to decide what's right and wrong?
Well, I'm not. I'm just trying to faithfully say what God has said. Which is more arrogant, to rely upon God or our own rational faculties?
But he gave us those rational faculties.
Surely, to be used in submission to Him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think at this point we've done an excellent job of going through the discussion. It might be an excellent opportunity to, an excellent segue for taking questions from the audience. So if you have a question that you'd like to address to either of the speakers or to both of the speakers, please raise your hands and I will call on as many of you as I am able. The gentleman in the back.
This question is...
Could you speak up, Ryan?
Sorry, what?
Could you speak up?
Yes, this question is for Professor Goodman. Okay, so I'm just going to read it for you. So you did make the claim that you are Catholic, correct? So of a Christian background. Okay, so kind of a two-part question. Does Christianity make the claim that man cannot achieve salvation on our own? Does Christianity make the claim that man cannot achieve salvation on its own?
Well, no, you have to go through God.
Okay. So if that's true, if so, then wouldn't it make it fundamentally different and contradictory to other personal religious paths who say that you can achieve faith, you can achieve salvation on your own via Buddhism, Hinduism, things like that? Isn't this a completely different mountain altogether that we're talking about?
Why?
Because if you can achieve salvation on your own, then we're talking about a completely different path here. We're not allowing God to make that salvation.
But here's the thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The thing is, when we say you have to achieve, a Christian, you have to achieve salvation through God, right? There may be environmentalists out there who believe that salvation is through, renewing and helping and saving the earth. And that's their God. I don't want to say their God because that has negative connotations. But that's how they believe that they may be finding salvation. Who's to say God isn't in the renewal of the earth? Just because we don't call it God, we don't put that label on it, doesn't mean that there's not God in that.
Dr. Miles, would you like to respond?
I tried to make the point that there are different conceptions of God that are just mutually incompatible, and that would be one of them. Salvation, what your notion of salvation is. The Christian doctrine of salvation by grace through faith, I think, radically differentiates it from every other approach in terms of grace. There might be kind of a freeland Buddhism notion of grace out there, but beyond that, that's about it. And then, well, and I guess it's for you to decide. Do you want to worship a God who sets up contradictory paths and different ideas about who he is? And by different, I'm not talking about different like shades of red. I'm talking about you either work for your salvation, or in one, you don't. Those seem to be contradictory paths.
The lady in the front.
Yes, the question is for Dr. Goodman. I wanted to know, have you read the Gospels, or the New Testament, or the Gospels?
I can't say I've read them cover to cover, but I have. 12 years of Catholic school, I dipped into that thing.
And one other comment I just wanted to make. I became a Christian about 10 years ago, and it wasn't because I wanted to be a good person. It was because I wanted to know what happened after I died. And as a result of me becoming a Christian, I have become a better person. But it wasn't because I thought, I want to be a better person, so I think I'm going to check out this Christianity.
Right, and I don't mean to suggest, before we go to that interpretation and intentionality again, I don't mean to suggest that that's why you do it, to become a better person, but that's kind of the end result of the path to God, is becoming a better person.
For me, I would disagree with that. The end result is that my salvation, that I can have everlasting.
Byproduct, is that a better word?
Yeah, that I can have everlasting life with.
Yeah, but I think that's a byproduct of being on this path to God, is being a better person.
It is.
And that's what I mean to suggest.
Did you have a response?
Just, well, she probably made the point that the Christian, the goal of Christianity is not to become better people. The goal of Christianity is the glory of God in Christ. Yeah. So, and I'm not. I actually haven't met too many Muslims who articulate that I'm a Muslim because I want to be a better person. I've never met such a one. Perhaps some Buddhists would say that. But the Buddhist has a completely different paradigm for salvation. They're trying to be a better person so they can escape the cycle and achieve nirvana, enlightenment. It's a radically different idea.
And let me just clarify again, I'm not, if I said that, I misspoke. I don't mean to suggest that that's why you believe in God, is to be a better person. But I think in order to get to know God, you kind of have to be a good person. So they kind of go hand in hand.
The gentleman over there in the booth.
So this goes for Professor Goodnow. Dr. Miles kind of laid it out that if you evaluate the historicity of Christianity and prove it to be true, what Christ said was true, and the Bible is historically accurate, and other religions say aren't, how could you say that when Christ says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, there is, I don't know, if Christianity is historically true, and what he said is historically accurate, doesn't seem to be another way to interpret that and say, well, all right, you're historically accurate, they're not, but go for it. Thank you.
You answered your own question. You put the word if. If it's true.
Okay,
right?
assuming it is true, then how would you reevaluate that?
Well, I believe that you can have multiple truths. You know, just because this book says that this is true, doesn't mean this book can't say that something else is true. Remember, we're talking about God here. He's all powerful. He can do whatever the heck he wants, right? So if he understands that this group of people will only come to know him through this, and to say, I am the truth and the life, and this is what's going to help these people get to know him, he's also capable of saying, you know what, that's not going to work for this group of people because of all these other reasons. And there's a truth here. These truths, getting to know God, I just don't see them as incompatible as other people do. Because I think it's God, and, you know, he can say, this is going to work for you, this is going to work for you.
Yeah, I think God is big and infinite, but there are some things he cannot do, at least according to the Bible. He can't lie, which seems to, there's a very clear statement of that, which seems to suggest that some sort of non-contradiction in there. I guess aside from that, I tried to make the point in the opening that that at least if you're going to evaluate Christianity,